This is a channeling from Adama on spirit guides and their energetic offerings. Now, I have previously channeled information in this series on spirit guides. However, the spirit guides I mentioned in that lesson were of the elemental nature, and those are the spirit guides that we have in the lower realms, as they are called. But I will now be speaking on the spirit guides in the higher realms. And for those who are not aware of the difference between the lower realms and the higher realms, the lower realms refers to anything within physicality, so that is the third dimension and below, and the higher realms refer to everything that is in the energetic form outside of physicality, and that is the fourth dimension and above. Now, the spirit guides that are of the higher realms may be divided into two categories, one of which are the spirit guides that stay with one for the entirety of this incarnation, and the other guides are the guides that come in temporarily to aid one with one specific purpose, or perhaps a series of purposes, and then they will exit. And for the purpose of this lesson, we will call this first type of guides the spirit guides who stay with one for the entirety of their life, a primary guide. And the guides that come in and leave as one goes through the seasons of their life, we will call secondary guides. However, please note that there is nothing primary or secondary about the nature of the help that they may offer you. So, for example, primary guides may not offer you more or any less help than secondary guides may. And as always, it is dependent purely on the being who is your guide. It is purely dependent on the being who is your guide, what amounts of energy you will receive, and the amount of help that you will receive from this guide. And I will talk more about this in a bit. However, I would first like to delve into the nature of these relationships. For indeed the relationship that one has with their spirit guide is a form of divine relationship. However, I did not mention it in the previous channeling on divine relationships, for indeed it does deserve its own lesson by itself. And that is why we are here now. But that being said, the spirit guides of the primary nature are chosen for one before their incarnation. And for the majority of secondary guides as well, these are also chosen before incarnation. However, on occasion, due to the nature of free will, one may associate with a being of a higher frequency who may act as a guide who their soul did not anticipate that they would reach out to. And indeed, this was one example of this may be my relationship with Marlena, for indeed her soul was not certain that she would be able to get to a point where she would be able to contact me in this lifetime, so we did not sign a soul contract before her incarnation. However, as she began on her spiritual journey, her soul realized that indeed this would be possible during this lifetime. And in 2018, she and I signed a soul contract. And since then, I have been aiding her in the awakening of her higher and lower faculties, albeit beyond the limits of her awareness. Yeah, that is news to me. Did not know that. Cool. Thanks, Adama. Indeed, it has been quite interesting to watch your development as a spiritual being, for it has been anything but linear. That's a nice way to put it. But hey, at least you survived, right? Indeed, I did survive. But that being said, I bring this up to use this relationship as an example of the unpredictable nature of free will. For indeed, there are other realities in which Marlena did not choose this, and in which we are not working and perhaps may never connect for the duration of this incarnation for her. But that is neither here nor there. And it is just an example of free will yet again. For although one's fate may be in one's highest and best good, it may not always be the choice that one makes, and vice versa. But back to spirit guides. The way one chooses their spirit guides, for indeed you choose your spirit guide before you enter this earth. There are many ways in which one may choose their spirit guide. So, for example, one of Marlena's higher spirit guides is a masculine figure who played a sort of fatherly role for her in her previous lifetime as a high priestess in ancient Celtic civilizations. Now, she calls this man the Merlin, for indeed that is the name of his title. However, that is not his name, and that was not quite the same word that the ancient Celts used to denote that position. However, that is the modern day equivalent, so he accepts it. But she also has many other guides whom she has not met yet. And one of them is a feminine being from the 9th dimension who has been watching over her for many years now. And her name is Jessica? Yesiba. Her name is Yesiba. Yeah, okay. Maybe? I don't know if that's right or not. I'm kind of not good at names like that. We're going to call her Yesiba until it's confirmed or not confirmed. Indeed, Yesiba is close enough. However, it is a few letters off. But it is not quite Jessica either. Jessica? There you go. That's it. Jessica. Like Jessica, but with a Y. Alrighty then. So Jessica is, shall we say, one of your Arcturian soul's mentors in the 9th dimension, and she has not yet reached out to you, but you may reach out to her if you so desire, and she is waiting for you to accept the energetic offering from Goddess Isis before she begins her work with you, for she will aid you in implementing Goddess Isis's gift once it is given to you. But more information on this later. Now, this channel does indeed have many, many other guides, and she will encounter them as necessity arises during the course of her life. And indeed, 2 of them are Gemini twin elves or fae-like creatures that used to reside here on Earth but have since ascended to the higher dimensions. That's sick. Never heard of anything like that before. And indeed, many other beings currently incarnated on Earth may have guides such as these Gemini twins, for there have been many civilizations on Earth who have ascended to the higher realms, and many of these beings have either chosen to incarnate on this Earth to aid with our ascension, or they have chosen to act as spirit guides or energetic guardians of the Earth. So, that being said, if you feel so inclined, you may reach out to these beings and know that they are quite empathetic towards your situation, for they have lived through it and seen to tell the tale. So, perhaps they would be very good beings to have on your side if you find yourself struggling with the limitations of the 3rd dimension. And the lessons of the 3rd dimension. But that being said, one may inherit guides, one may choose guides, and indeed, occasionally, one's guides may choose them. However, this is usually the case for the elementals. For the elementals are much more temperamental than the higher beings and the higher the spirit guides of the higher realms. Now, as for how one chooses their primary versus their secondary guides, one may choose their primary guides based on the importance of the relationship, and usually one will only have 2 or 3 main primary guides throughout their life that stay with them throughout their lifetime. However, one may have tens or occasionally even hundreds of secondary guides that they work with throughout their lifetime. And indeed, this channel personally may reach upwards of 100 during the course of her lifetime, for she is quite chatty in the astral realm. A little bit of a pot and kettle situation there, Adama. Indeed it is, and that's why we get along. But that being said, I am considered a secondary guide for this channel. However, the other 4 guides that I have previously mentioned, so the Merlin, Jessica, and the Gemini twins are considered her primary guides for this lifetime. However, the Gemini twins are of one soul, so they are considered one spirit guide as a whole being. However, they do have separate intelligences and consciousnesses, so perhaps they may be considered separate beings in that they will provide her with 2 separate viewpoints and 2 separate points of reference when it comes to the messages that she will receive from them. But these beings that are the Gemini twins are from the star system of Pleiades, and are also of a very high vibrational frequency, like this channel's soul. Now, if one wishes to discover who who their primary guides are, they may reach out to these primary guides and know that if they do not receive an answer in return, then it is not quite yet for them to meet these guides. However, all in divine timing. But these primary guides are decided upon usually based on the events of one's life leading up to their full physical maturity. For these are the years that are most instrumental in determining what the trajectory of one's life will follow. However, please note that it is never too late to teach an old dog new tricks, and if you find that you are wanting to change your ways later in life, know that it is still possible for you, and your guides will be ecstatic to aid you in this endeavor. But that being said, one's primary guides are chosen based off of the most likely trajectory that one's life will follow based on the years of their adolescence and their youth. For these years are much more predictable than the years later in life. However, the way in which this predictability is counted or is calculated is quite a difficult topic, and I shall not even attempt to explain it, for this channel has a very strong and fiery passion and hate, a very strong and fiery passion. What are you trying to say? Passionate. That's what you were trying to say. This channel has a very strong, passionate hate for math. There were so many easier ways to say that. Indeed, I am slightly challenging your energy body in a new way tonight by removing the clairsentience from the messages that you are receiving. And so this is forcing you to rely more on the other higher faculties that are being used in this channeling. And it may be slightly difficult for you, but the goal of this is to ease you into using your clairaudience. For it is not something that comes easily to you when you have more readily available and more easily accessible higher faculties that will help you receive these messages. So it is a form of taking off your training wheels, shall we say. But that being said, it should not affect the accuracy of this message, and if it begins to, I will merely begin to transmit some of the message clairsentiently as well. But back to our spirit guides. So as I have said, the primary guides are chosen based off of one's youth, and one's secondary guides are sometimes chosen based off of one's youth, but are usually chosen based off of the season of life that one is in. So, for example, right now I am working very closely with Marlena. However, this may not always be the case, or perhaps we will go for spurts of time where we work closely like this, and spurts of time where she does not work as closely with me as she works with other guides. And that is okay, for thus is the nature of growth, and I would have it no other way. For she cannot learn everything from me, and that is why she must not put all of her eggs in my basket, if you would. So, that being said, do not feel bad for working with many different guides, for we all have something different to teach you, and we will never fault you for seeking out guidance from a different guide that you might feel would be better suited to aid you in that moment. However, do note that if we feel we are perfectly suited to aid you, then we may we may barge our way in anyways and aid you, even if you do not explicitly ask for it, as long as your higher self gives consent. But that being said, the way in which one chooses secondary guides may indeed be similar to the way in which one chooses primary guides, and that is before this incarnation. However, secondary guides may be added along the way as well at almost any point. And for the majority of the guides that are added later in life, these are the guides that decide to reach out to the person incarnate. And indeed, I chose to reach out to Marlena. However, she was not consciously aware of it at that time. Yeah, what the heck? When did that happen? It happened in 2018 when you first received the download of the visuals of Lemuria and all of its animals and people. Cool. But this has also happened with the elemental guides that this channel works with as well. And as I have said, for almost every elemental guide, the elemental guide is the one who initiates that relationship. For those beings are quite persnickety, shall we say, and they have very big personalities, so they must choose a being to guide who matches with their personality and does not clash. Otherwise, they would never be able to stand their job of being a guide in this way. But that being said, there are many ways in which one may contact their spirit guides, and perhaps the simplest and easiest way is the way that is most known as prayer, or the way that this channel knows as having a conversation with a guide in her mind. So one may just have a stream of thought and imagine projecting it to whichever guide they wish to speak with, and know that your message will get to your guide. However, the more difficult part is being sensitive enough and quiet enough to hear the guide's response. And one may perhaps need to be in a deep form of meditation at first to be able to hear these responses from their guides and these messages from their guides. However, as always, practice makes perfect, so the more you practice hearing messages from your guides, the easier it will be to receive these messages, and at some point you may even be able to have conversations with your guides as easily as you would another person if they were sitting next to you. However, this may take some practice for most people, for modern day society is very loud and busy and overstimulating, and one must allow their brain and body and spirit to fully relax and decompress, and then open up to receive these messages before they may be aware of them. But one may also connect to their guides by creating an altar or any sort of physical symbol of their relationship to this guide. So this may be, as I have said, an altar, or it may be a crystal, or it may be a physical location that you go to and you spend time at to connect with this guide. However, the options are limitless. And if you are drawn to a specific way of connecting with a guide that is not listed previously, or even that is listed previously, do not judge yourself and simply go with it, for you may find that the guide themselves is hurting you towards that method, for it may yield a stronger connection between you and that guide. For example, this channel meditates using a piece of Lemurian quartz and a piece of lavender amethyst. And these two crystals were drawn to her by me. I led her to those two crystals so that she would be able to more easily connect with my energy and allow for these channelings to occur. That's cool. But that being said, these are merely enhancements, and one may access their guides without the use of any physical symbol. However, it may be easier to give your brain a physical focal point. So if you find that you are a very visual or kinesthetic learner, then you may find a physical token of your guide to be beneficial in fostering that relationship at the beginning. Now, if you choose to use a crystal to connect with your guides, please note that you may choose one crystal to connect with all of your guides, or you may choose one crystal to connect with one of your guides, and this is purely up to each individual, and perhaps to their guide as well. For some guides have very specific vibrational frequencies that they will not wish to mingle with the other vibrational frequencies of your other guides. So they may prefer a crystal that is used specifically just for them. However, again, this is all dependent on the being, and you need only use your intuition to ask your guide what they would prefer. And if you find you are unable to come to a conclusion, then you may simply flip a coin, or use some other form of quote-unquote chance to determine this, for your guides are able to manipulate these quote-unquote chances and manipulate them and alter them to their own desires. So say, for example, if you are deciding between having a full-blown altar having a full-blown altar in your house, or having a physical location outside of your house dedicated to a guide, then you may flip a coin and assign heads and tails to each respective outcome, and your guide may choose the outcome, heads or tails, that corresponds to the way in which they wish for you to foster that connection. And indeed, this is similar to the use of dowsing rods and even the use of pendulums. However, pendulums are a little bit more tricky, for unless one is very focused on constantly cleansing their pendulum, they may find that it attracts negative entities. For the way in which these pendulums are constructed is lacking in many of the protective intentions and spells, if you will, that are usually woven into, or that used to be woven into the pendulums of old. However, one may indeed weave these intentions into their own pendulum. However, it is quite an intensive process. But they may also ask their guides for assistance in this process as well. For your guides are always here to assist you, and if it is in your path to work with these pendulums, then of course your guides will aid you in this. But that being said, that is a perfect segue into the energetic offerings that our guides may give us. For although our guides are here for advice and counsel, they are also here for the sake of healing, be it on the energetic level or the physical level or many, many other levels. And indeed, I have worked with Marlena on many levels, from the physical to the emotional to the spiritual to the DNA and I am level presence. So the relationship between a guide and the being incarnated is quite an intensive relationship, and the guide may help the incarnate being with any vast manner of issues, problems, situations. But that being said, in order to receive any kind of offering from your guides, no matter the level, you must first give consent. For in order to receive anything on an energetic level, you must have given your express consent. For you may give off anything as much as you want without consent, but you may not receive anything until you have given consent. And that is the nature of consent. So, if you wish to receive healing from your guides, you need only express this either verbally or in a projectile manner in your head, and know that your guides will hear this message. And then they will be allowed to offer you these energetic offerings. And as I have said, these energetic offerings may encompass a very vast variety of topics. So if you wish for an offering regarding a specific theme, then you need only request it. However, please note that if you do not receive an offering on that specific topic immediately, it is because you are not quite ready for it, and so your guides must first prepare you and build the foundation for that theme before they introduce it to you. However, please note that they did not forget it, for their memories are perhaps much better than ours are in this incarnation, for they are not limited by the brain as we know it. And although I am in the 5th dimension, I do still have a physical body of sorts because I have chosen to remain incarnated on Earth until she completes her ascension to the 5th dimension, after which I will indeed most likely pass on. For my life has been a very long one, but that is neither here nor there. And I would like it noted that I do not look upon my future passing with anything but contentment and relief. For as you all are aware, this incarnation is a doozy, as they say. But that being said, despite my own status as a sort of guide to Marlena, I also have my own guides, for as I have just said, I am incarnated on Earth. And perhaps I am a bit less of a guide in this sense and more of a mentor to her. However, perhaps a guide would be a better term, since I am not of the same dimensional frequency that this channel is. So, indeed, these definitions here are quite loose and open to interpretation. So, if you find that they are being frequently misused or intermingled, then this is why. For there is no official dictionary of spiritual terms, and many of the terms that we are using to describe the phenomenon in these channelings have either been concocted by myself or the channel, or have been adopted from other works that have spoken on similar subjects. But that being said, that was a slight digression, pardon. That being said, there are many ways in which one may know when their guide is providing them with an energetic offering. So one is, as this channel has experienced previously, when they find their spine spontaneously moving, usually in a cyclical or serpentine pattern. So this may look like their head bobbing back and forth in a figure 8 pattern, or their spine wiggling back and forth, or their head making circles, or various other fluid movements such as these that will allow one to activate their toroidal field and allow the energy of their spirit guide to more fully become present in their body. But this is only one way, for one may receive energetic offerings from their spirit guides in a variety of settings, and it need not be only in meditation. So, for example, if you go on a hike in the woods and you wish to receive an offering from an elemental guide that you know is quite fond of these woods, then this may be a great spot to receive this offering while you walk. For, as previously mentioned, the elementals are quite tempestuous, so they do have a tendency to like to move. However, the Ascended Masters, on the other hand, are much more grounded and still, and so you may find that they prefer that one be meditating while they receive these offerings. However, this is not the case for all of them, for as this channel has learned, Mary Magdalene is quite loose in this way, and this channel received an offering from Mary Magdalene while she was making pancakes. So this is just an example of the variety of situations in which one may receive an energetic offering. However, one's guides may call them to a specific location to receive an energetic offering. So, for example, this channel has been being called by Goddess Isis for about 1.5 years now to go sit beneath a waterfall and receive her energetic offering. And this channel is indeed coming upon the optimal time to do so, and she is aware of this. But when she goes and sits beneath that waterfall, the energy of that waterfall will allow Goddess Isis's energy to more fully impart this offering on her, on the channel that is. And that is why Goddess Isis has chosen to call her in front of the waterfall, as opposed to just offering her this offering in a meditation or during another time. For Goddess Isis's energy is quite potent and very intense, and the presence of the water will not only allow the energy to be less shocking, but it will also allow the water fae, who are Marlena's guides, to aid her in this process as well. For the waterfall that she has chosen to do this meditation at is one that is very rich in these water fae, and they do indeed love to hang out at this spot, which is why she was chosen to, which was why she was drawn to that spot in the first place. And indeed, one may find that if their guides draw them to a specific spot, it may be something vague like a waterfall, or it may be something specific like this specific waterfall in particular. However, if your guides are drawing you to a place that you may not visit in the physical realm, you may always visit this place, or you may usually visit this place in the astral realm as well to receive this energetic offering. However, dependent on the offering and the being who is offering the offering, this may not be an option. So, for example, in the case of Goddess Isis's offering for Marlena, the offering would not be best received in the astral body, for this is an offering for her physical body, and will be a form of DNA upgrade that will allow her more visceral access to her higher and lower faculties. And in a sense, will draw more of her Ka and her Ba into her body and strengthen her energetic presence, while also awakening more of the latent DNA inside of her body. And indeed, Goddess Isis has the goal of offering this same exact offering to any being who chooses to undergo her initiation. And to undergo the initiation of Goddess Isis, you need only express your interest and be living from the heart chakra and a place of love. And those are Goddess Isis's only 2 requirements for working with her. And indeed, those are really the only 2 requirements for working with any being of the higher realms, is expressing interest and therefore giving consent, and then living from a place of love. Or at the very least, striving to live from a place of love. For the spirit guides that are available to work with the beings on Earth now are certainly aware of the struggles that these humans are undergoing due to the dense nature of their incarnation. And if one finds themselves getting caught up in this dense energy, they may always reach out to their guides to seek assistance. And as always, ask, believe, receive. If you have a request, you need only express it to the universe, believe that the universe has heard you and will take care of it, and then be open to receiving the ways in which the universe will take care of this for you. And for more information on the nature of this, please listen to the channeling titled The Art and Magic of Manifestation. But that being said, that is about the extent of the nature of the relationship with one's guides. So the majority of the relationship between one and their guides will be one of this energetic offering. And contrary to popular belief in the pagan communities, one need not offer any sort of other offering in return to their guides and to any deities that with whom they may be working. For these guides know that, for these guides can see the bigger picture, and they know the deeper reasons behind the work that they are doing, and that is payment enough for them. So although creating an altar may increase your ability to connect with these guides, it will not placate these guides. And indeed, if you do not have an altar, or do not clear your altar, or whatever it is that you may feel guilt about, if you do not do those things that you believe make your altar good enough, then I promise you these guides will not care. It does not matter to them, for they will still be able to connect with you whether you have an altar or not, or whether you are making sacrifices to them or not. However, please note that our use of the term sacrifice here is not that of a bloody nature, and refers to the way that the word sacrifice was used in the channeling on manifestation. And that is the way in which one may manifest. However, that is not the way in which one may work with their spirit guides. However, do note that if they wish to work with their spirit guides in manifestation, then a sacrifice may still be necessary. However, this is neither here nor there, and was covered briefly in that previous channeling. But that being said, these spirit guides may also act as a sort of spiritual therapist, if you will, in that they may act as a sort of spiritual authority, and if one finds themselves going through a difficult or confusing time, they may have a conversation with their spirit guides, and their spirit guides may offer them many different words of encouragement, or many different possible coping mechanisms, or ways in which they may work through the current struggles that they are dealing with. So perhaps a spiritual therapist is not the right term, but perhaps in between a therapist and a friend would be a better way to put the way that this relationship is. For our spirit guides may not take the place of our therapists, and if you are struggling with depression, this is not a recommendation to quit therapy and solely talk to your spirit guides as your therapists, for that would be a horrible idea, even if one is struggling with any other mental illness as well, in addition to or besides depression. But that being said, one may have casual conversations with their spirit guides in the way that one may have casual conversations with their friends, and one may also have in-depth conversations and receive advice from their spirit guides in the way that they may have in-depth conversations and receive advice from their therapists. However, these two relationships are mutually exclusive. That is the relationship of a therapist and the relationship of a spirit guide, and I cannot stress enough how they may not replace each other. So a therapist may not be a spirit guide, and a spirit guide may not be a therapist. However, both relationships are immensely important at different times in one's path to enlightenment. For there are very few beings who will be able to process all of their trauma, from both past and present lifetimes, without the help of a therapist, at least at some point. And similarly, it is highly unlikely that one will be able to achieve enlightenment without the use of their spirit guides, even if they are not fully aware of their spirit guides. For if one's consciousness does not encompass the bandwidth on which their spirit guides reside, that does not mean that they are unable to give consent to their spirit guides. They just will not be aware of whether or not they have given consent, and whether or not their spirit guides are working with them or not, until they expand their consciousness to encompass those higher vibrational frequencies. And for beings for whom this is the case, they may find it is easier to first connect to their elemental guides, for these beings are of a lower dimensional frequency. But that being said, usually one's elemental guides are of a primary nature, so they stay with them for their whole life. And this may also aid in the aforementioned endeavor of connecting with them as well. However, there are some guides that are some elemental guides that are more of a secondary nature. And traditionally, for most beings on Earth, these are the air and fire elementals, for they are much more flighty, if you will, than the earth and water elementals. But that is all that we have for this evening, and as always, it was a pleasure. Toodaloo.